I never thought I'd learn what real humiliation felt like in first class, the kind with champagne glasses and leather seats. But there I was standing in an airplane aisle feeling about 2 inches tall, while a woman in a pressed uniform decided I didn't belong there. Funny thing is, I'd spent most of my life proving people wrong, building myself up from nothing, but it only took one flight, one voice dripping with contempt to remind me how quickly the world can decide who you are worth. Yeah, that happened, and it changed everything. It started early that morning at a major East Coast airport, all glass walls and echoing announcements, people dragging suitcases like tired pets behind them. I was traveling with my teenage son Eli, a quiet kid with a sharp mind and a body that didn't always cooperate. He walked with forearm crutches custom-made fitted exactly to him, something we'd saved for because insurance didn't care much for comfort or dignity. Flying already made him anxious not because of heights but because of people, the looks, the impatience, the way strangers feel entitled to judge your pace. I could see him bracing himself as we walked toward the gate, shoulders tense, eyes down, trying to disappear. We were flying first class that day, not to show off, but because space matters when your joints ache and you can't fold yourself into a tiny seat for hours. As we boarded, everything felt fine at first, polite smiles, quick scans of our tickets. Then she appeared. Let's call her Dana. Tall, sharp posture voice clipped like every sentence was an order. Her eyes went straight to Eli's crutches, not his face, not mine, just the crutches like they were some kind of personal insult. She stopped us cold. "Those can't come on board," she said loud enough for the people behind us to hear. "Safety issue. Policy. Tripping hazard." Eli tried to explain quietly that he needed them, that he couldn't walk without them, that they fit overhead just fine. Dana didn't listen. She talked over him, talked over me, told us we were holding up the line. I felt that familiar heat rise in my chest, the one that comes when you're being dismissed, but I also felt my son shrinking beside me, his grip tightening on the handles. People behind us started sighing, checking phones, muttering. Someone joked about missing their connection. Dana smiled at them, then turned back to us like she was doing everyone a favor. "You can check those," she said, reaching out as if the decision was already made. Eli looked at me, eyes glassy, and whispered that it was okay that he'd managed, that he didn't want trouble. That was the first cut, watching my kid apologize for existing. I argued calmly at first, then firmer. These weren't luggage, they were mobility aids. Dana crossed her arms, told me it was her cabin, her call. Either we handed them over, or we didn't fly. In that moment, I made a choice I still wrestle with. I handed them over, not because she was right, but because my son was overwhelmed and I needed him seated, breathing safe. Dana smirked like she'd won a small, ugly game. Eli had to shuffle to his seat using armrests every step, awkward, painful, exposed. I followed, jaw clenched, promising myself this wasn't over. As we settled in, I watched Dana walk back toward the door. Crutches in hand, I expected her to store them, tag them something reasonable. Instead, she paused, glanced back at us, then tossed them out onto the tarmac like trash. No hesitation, no accident. I heard the dull crack even through the cabin walls. Something inside me went completely still. Not rage, not yet, just a cold clarity. Dana turned back inside, brushed her hands together and said, "Problem solved." Eli hadn't seen it. He asked where his crutches were. I told him they were being handled, my voice steady even as my stomach twisted. I sat down, buckled in, and pulled out my phone. I didn't call customer service. I didn't argue. I messaged one person, a board member I knew well, someone who owed me more than a few favors. I explained exactly what happened where who, and asked for one thing: footage. Every camera, every angle. The plane pushed back as I hit send. Dana walked past again, leaned in close to Eli, and made a comment about him staying in his seat and not causing issues. That was when I told her quietly not to speak to my child again. She laughed and said I didn't have a choice. The flight itself was a blur of tension. Dana skipped our meal service, made snide remarks when Eli needed water, ignored the call button when he needed help getting to the restroom. At one point, she claimed the aisle chair was broken. I offered to help my son myself. Eli refused humiliated, insisting he could manage. Watching him struggle down the aisle, hands shaking, people staring, was unbearable. When turbulence hit and he fell, Dana stepped over him and told him to get up, called him a hazard. That was it. I knelt beside my son, looked straight at the camera in the ceiling, and said softly that this moment would matter. Later, while Eli slept exhausted, my phone buzzed. The footage had come through. Clear as day. Dana throwing the crutches, deliberately smiling as they fell. Not just cruelty, but destruction of medical equipment near an active aircraft. Serious. I watched it twice, then closed my phone. I didn't confront her. Not yet. When we landed, Dana seemed confident, even smug. She announced authorities would be boarding and glanced at me like she'd won again. The officers came in, spoke briefly with the station manager, then asked Dana for her name. Her smile faltered. She pointed at me, accused me of being disruptive. The manager didn't look at me once. He told Dana she was relieved of duty, effective immediately. When they showed her the video, her face drained of color. The handcuffs clicked loud and final. The cabin erupted in applause. But victory didn't feel clean. Eli was still shaken, still without his crutches, still hurting. We got temporary replacements, awkward and heavy, and made our way out through flashing cameras. The story spread fast. Offers came in apologies, settlements. I turned them all down. Instead, I filed a lawsuit not just for us, but for everyone who'd been quietly mistreated, ignored, shamed. Months later in court, I listened as Dana claimed she was following policy, that she'd acted in the name of safety. Then, the recordings played old complaints voicemails where she joked about special needs passengers slowing her down. The room went silent. The verdict was swift. Damages, a permanent ban from working in aviation. Accountability at last. Outside, reporters asked if it felt like justice. I looked at my son, standing taller now, stronger, and said, "Justice is complicated. It doesn't erase what happened, but it can change what happens next." So here's what I want to ask you. Was Dana just doing her job, or did she cross a line that can't be excused? Have you ever watched someone in power decide you were an inconvenience instead of a human being? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if this story stuck with you, share it, because the only way things change is when we stop letting moments like this disappear at 30,000 feet.